Hey, I'm Zanzi, and welcome to Farmers Inside Track, episode 149, powered by Meadow Feeds. I'm your host, Donumdu. Now, time and time again, experts emphasize that irrespective of the farming operation, whether it's commercial layers, broilers, or broiler breeders, keeping chickens healthy and productive should always be a priority. Retha Engels, technical advisor at Meadow Feeds, joins us now to break down some of the more common chicken diseases, treatments, and overall standard practice that all farmers should know and understand from day one. Retha, welcome to Farmers Inside Track. Great to have you with us.
Hi, Dawn. It's great to be here. Thanks so much for the invite.
Today, we're talking about common chicken diseases. But before we get into it, I'd like to maybe ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself. Where did your journey start in agriculture? Just to get to know you before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's discussion.
I studied animal science at Stellenbosch University and completed my master's that side. Straight after, I started as a technical advisor at Meadow Feeds in Pietermaritzburg, where I've been for 3 years now. I specialize in poultry, so primarily layers, broiler breeders, and I do a little bit of pigs as well.
I think it's always awesome to speak to females working in the space, specifically on your level, with all the technical aspects, giving farmers advice. And I think it's super awesome. I'm a champion for women in agriculture. So thanks so much for joining me and for sharing your knowledge. Today, we're talking about common chicken diseases, like I mentioned in my introductions. Why is knowing common diseases so vital for farmers?
I found that irrespective of the farming operation, whether it's with commercial layers, broilers, or broiler breeders, that keeping the chickens healthy and productive should always be a priority. Good biosecurity is of utmost importance for the health of chickens and for the profitability of the farm. So chickens commonly suffer from a variety of diseases and health conditions, and it's vital to understand the different types of diseases and recognize the most common diseases that can affect the birds in order to maintain good flock health.
How are the different types of diseases affecting chickens categorized?
Chicken diseases are categorized as either infectious, parasitic, nutritional, or behavioral, depending on the cause of the disease.
Can you tell us more about the different categories of diseases, starting with infectious diseases?
Infectious diseases tend to be the most common as they're spread with relative ease between the chickens. Infectious diseases can be caused by bacteria, viruses, or fungi, and they can affect the respiratory, nervous, reproductive, or immune systems of chickens. Chickens showing symptoms of infectious diseases should be quarantined and treated as soon as possible to protect the rest of the flock.
And what about the parasitic diseases?
So with parasitic diseases, parasites can be found living on or inside the chickens, and they're often found in certain environmental conditions or contracted from other infected birds. Common parasites on poultry farms include lice, mites, ticks, roundworms, and fleas. The presence of parasites can be indicated by irritation, feather damage, anemia, or parasites can be found in the feces of chickens. The bird should be inspected monthly, and poultry housing should be kept clean to prevent these parasitic diseases.
Retha, from your previous comments, I believe that there are also nutritional and behavioral diseases. Can you explain what these entail?
Chickens living in an unhealthy environment, for example, with inadequate feed, poor nutrition, and insufficient exercise, can become vulnerable to nutritional and metabolic diseases. And birds affected by these can have soft bones and beaks and show signs of lameness and perform poorly. The majority of these diseases can be treated with proper nutrition and the correct feeding program. And then behavioral can be caused when birds are overly stressed, and symptoms include aggression, pecking at feathers and other birds, the eating of eggs, and cannibalism. These problems should be prevented before they start by ensuring birds have adequate nutrition, proper stocking densities, correct temperature and ventilation control, and that good flock health is maintained.
Which of the viral diseases are most common and prevalent in chickens?
The most common viral diseases would include your fowlpox, avian influenza, infectious bronchitis, and Newcastle disease. Fowlpox is a highly contagious viral disease that can present in either a wet or a dry form in chickens. The dry form presents as painful wart-like lesions on the unfeathered areas of the chickens, primarily their legs, feet, combs, and wattles, while the wet form affects the upper gastrointestinal and respiratory tracts of the chickens, and it causes lesions in the mouth, esophagus, and trachea. Egg production will decrease in laying hens, and young birds will experience stunted growth. There's no treatment for fowlpox, but it can be prevented by vaccinating all chickens with the wing web method with a commercially available fowlpox vaccine between 12 and 16 weeks of age. It's also important to control mosquitoes in chicken housing as they can spread the disease from flock to flock. And avian influenza is caused by type A orthomyxoviruses and is spread by wild aquatic birds that affect domesticated chickens. Symptoms in chickens include diarrhea, coughing and sneezing, nasal discharge, purple discoloration and edema in the wattles and comb, ruffled feathers, and sudden death. Once it spreads, avian influenza is deadly, and all affected birds will have to be culled and the carcasses destroyed. There are currently no vaccines available for avian influenza in South Africa, and poultry farmers should take utmost care with biosecurity practices to prevent the disease entering the farm. Then, infectious bronchitis is a viral disease that can travel through the air. It's characterized by coughing, sneezing, and mucus discharge from the nasal passage and eyes, as well as decreased egg production and feed consumption. Chickens can be treated with antibiotics for a few days to treat any secondary infections, but the best option is prevention by vaccinating against infectious bronchitis or good biosecurity procedures. And then finally, Newcastle disease is a respiratory disease that's also carried by wild birds. Affected chickens may present with nasal discharge, respiratory problems, murky eyes, decreased egg productions, and the characteristic twisted necks and paralysis in the legs and the wings. There are varying strains of Newcastle disease, and some of these are more lethal than others. Older birds will frequently recover and be carriers, but younger birds tend to die from the disease. There's no treatment, but vaccinations are also available.
Now, Rita, what is the common parasitic diseases which you have come across in the field?
So the most common parasitic disease would be Coccidiosis. It's a parasitic disease caused by Coccidian protozoa that live inside the gut wall of chickens, and it causes damage. Chickens are infected by consuming coccidia from the environment, and then these coccidia cause destruction of intestinal epithelial cells, resulting in watery or bloody diarrhea, ruffled feathers, decreased feed consumption, and consequently weight loss due to an inability to absorb nutrients. Coccidiosis is most common in chickens kept on the floor in barn or free-range systems. It can be treated with antibiotics and is preferably prevented by vaccinating or adding a coccidiostat to the feed.
Now, you've mentioned all the preventative measures as you are listing all the diseases, but could you just maybe highlight those again? How can farmers prevent these diseases as we wrap up the conversation, Retha?
Even with all of these common diseases and the health problems that the poultry farmers are challenged with, the most important thing is your good flock health. So that can be ensured primarily by maintaining your good biosecurity, ensuring proper nutrition, good management practices, and a thorough vaccination program.
Rita, just one last comment for any of the farmers listening.
If you've got any further questions, you're welcome to contact myself or your nearest Meadow Feeds technical advisor. You can find us on www.meadowfeeds.co.za and then just click on your nearest location to find the technical advisor that's in your area.
Thanks, Retha Engels, technical advisor at Meadow Feeds. And that brings us to the end of this episode. From me, Donumdu, our producer Megan van der Vent, and the rest of the Food from Zanzi team, have a great week. Bye for now.
Life in South Africa can be a lot. I mean, scroll through Twitter for a minute and tell me I'm wrong. Thank God for South Africans though, right? We're inspiring, and even on the bad days, we fight back with a smile. That's why I love Food from Zanzi so much. They're not ashamed to celebrate the ordinary unsung heroes who work every day to put food on our nation's tables. Go to foodformzanzi.co.za and never miss an inspiring story.